Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Good Investing. I'm your host, Tim Nash. Most of us realize that our savings and investments are linked to fossil fuels, but breaking that link can feel intimidating and near impossible. Well, I'm here to tell you it's actually pretty easy and doesn't require any financial sacrifice. In fact, the action items I present in this lecture will likely save you money. Think of it as a crash course in making your money work not just for you, but also for our collective futures. Let's get into it. All right, so we got something a little bit different cooked up for you tonight that I do have a little sort of lecture planned, climate proofing your personal finances. But I do have some amazing guests tonight. And so first up is Amy from Project Neutral. How you doing, Amy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Welcome so much to climate proofing your personal finances. To kick us off, Amy, you've got a little exercise for us. Is that right?
That's right.
All right. So here's the slide that you gave me. Do you want to walk us through it?
I will do that. All right. So just a quick intro into who I am. I'm Amy. I'm dialing in from Treaty 13 territory in Toronto. I'm the director of Project Neutral, and we're a charitable initiative that has a mission to bring all people into the climate movement through inclusive and action-oriented programs. So before we get to the main event, as you see on the slide, we've got a little fun exercise for you. So what you see on the screen is, of course, a paperclip. So for the next 30 seconds or so, I'm going to try and solicit some creativity from the group. And what we want you to do is, what we'll invite you to do is think about as many uses as you can for a paperclip, other than the actual intended use, which is, of course, to clip paper together. Okay, lovely. So I am loving the creativity of this. We've got, just to name a few, we've got Rita that says a zipper pull, Leslie with a lint picker, Sarah hanging things near my desk. Ooh, yes. Paul with a screwdriver, Linda attaching your boots if your lace is broken. Oh, great. Lots of practical ones. Lori removing the SIM card from their cell phone. Anna keychain. So many amazing ideas. Some of you might be wondering, well, we're on a climate webinar. What does this have to do with climate change? So this is kind of how I like to think of it, is that our creativity and our ingenuity are gifts. And they can be really wonderful tools that we can use to help us think of really amazing climate solutions that work in the long term for everyone. And if we just think about all these different ideas that we got from the group today, so the question was, what other uses for this paperclip can you think of? And look at all the ideas that we got. That's because everyone has unique experiences, talents, and perspectives that can really influence how they think, and that can influence the ideas that they come up with. And so when we can kind of bring these ideas and perspectives together, we get something out of it. And the group gets something out of it. And it's that kind of imagination that I think we really need for this kind of wide scale change. Well, this gives you a super quick taste of what you can expect in some of our Project Neutral programs. One that we have coming up is called Talk Climate to Me. It's a fun, interactive, and creative, and hopefully insightful program as well that offers some cool climate basics. It helps you kind of make these high impact climate choices for your personal, your public, and your political sphere. So if that's something that you're curious about, we invite you to learn more about it through our link at talkclimatetome.ca. That's all from me, and I'll turn it back over to Tim.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. Really appreciate it. We have another guest coming up a little bit later as well. I've got Adam from My Climate Plan, who's going to be chatting with me after the lecture. But I love Project Neutral. I love Talk Climate to Me. This is one of my absolute favorite initiatives. I think we've got some Talk Climate to Me people in the chat, so feel free to share your experiences. But they've got some amazing programming coming up in April. I love it. They do evening sessions, daytime sessions, and even weekend sessions. I wish I had that many options for y'all. Really, really cool organization. Great initiative. Thank you so much, Amy, for getting us started here. And welcome. I'm so honored for y'all to join me for this talk on climate proofing your personal finances. What we've got today, so Amy kicked us off with a great little exercise, which is great. What I'm going to be talking a little bit about is the notion of your personal finance journey and kind of detailing this idea of sort of this learning arc. And really, I think it can feel very overwhelming when we start talking about money and different steps to take. So I've really tried to lay it out as simply and as cleanly as possible. We're going to kind of highlight a couple things, including banks versus credit unions, and then I'll talk a little bit about Sustainable Investing 101, just to give a very high-level overview of some of these concepts. From there, I do have Adam from My Climate Plan. We've got a really sweet offer, and if you've never heard of My Climate Plan, you're going to learn about a really cool organization. And then really hoping that we're going to have a nice, fulsome Q&A at the end. I love the Q&A. The chat is already super active. Hopefully y'all can see just how welcoming and amazing this group is. And so really excited to hear the questions that you're going to have. So my name is Tim Nash. My mission is to help 1 million Canadians invest intentionally. So far, I've helped about 30,000 Canadians take some kind of action to be able to align their investments with their values. So I'm well on my way, but a long way to go still in terms of normalizing some of these conversations about really getting people to understand how they save their money, how they invest their money, and bring some intention to that. It's a really interesting time right now in the world. We're seeing so many people, this rise of patriotism here in Canada. Feels like we're under threat from the US, and so many people are taking action with their money. This whole notion of buy Canadian, I've never seen this much momentum and people really realizing the economic power that they've got. And I'm just so happy because this is a drum that I've been beating for quite a while, is trying to get people to understand that our money has power and what we do with our money matters. And so being intentional about how we earn that money, how we spend that money, but also especially important to me is how we save and invest that money is absolutely critical. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, and really excited to have you here. So I want to start with this notion of your sustainable investment journey. That this is, because really it's, I'll get into sort of like bite-sized pieces, but want to give you an idea of, sort of the big picture, especially of where we want to end up with this. That I've been working on this notion of what is the goal? Why are we saving? Why are we investing? That I think so for so many of us, this notion of saving for the future or for retirement, it just doesn't really resonate. This notion of financial independence, I don't think it's as motivating as I want it to be. Certainly for me in my life, it's not. So I've been really trying to imagine this idea of what financial fulfillment can look like. And to me, the analogy that I use is that investing for the future is like growing a garden. And so when I think about where I want to end up at the end of the journey, I want to have a garden that is so big and lush that it's more like a farm or even like a forest, where I have complete abundance, where I know I'm never going to go hungry, where I know I'm never going to be lack of shelter, and where I have so much that I can actually be generous, that I can share with my friends, with my family, with my society. I can give back my time. I can donate money. This notion of just, more than abundance, but just of having enough and having security. That we talk a lot about this idea of financial independence or financial freedom. And I really love this idea of financial fulfillment. That's really the word that I'm kind of playing with right now. And so that's where we kind of want to end up. Is this idea of financial fulfillment. And the question is, how do we get there? Well, I've kind of created this little sustainable investment journey. It's still a little rough, so I'm kind of playing with this right now. I'm really excited to share this with you, that, this is sort of where we want to end up. Is this idea of financial fulfillment where we can eat well from the proceeds of your forest, right? Where we can enjoy life, where people feel confident in your financial freedom, right? To me, this is something worth moving towards, right? I think a lot of us kind of lack the motivation sometimes to really like save and invest and look after our money. And so my hope is that, this is an image, a concept that's a little bit more appealing, that we can kind of sink our teeth into a little bit more. But of course, most of us are not there, right? This idea of financial fulfillment, most of us are not there. That most of us, I think, are all the way at the start of the journey here with so many questions and so many feelings about our money, right? That, I know a lot of folks have a lot of feelings around money. The most common feelings that people have with their money are around scarcity, and guilt and shame and comparison, this notion of not enough and comparing ourselves to other people who have more than us, right? And so really want to start here from this point where, I have this image of a child, because I think for so many of us at the start of our financial journey, that we do feel kind of like a kid, that we don't fully understand the language, and that it can feel really messy. Sandy says, Tim, this is a beautiful alternative to the tired old goals of more wealth. Sandy, I'm so happy to see you here. And, a lot of those kind of old images of wealth, they just don't resonate to me. So we want to do something a little bit different. And so to me, the analogy that I have, the kind of journey I want you to go on with me tonight, is first, if you're going to grow a garden, if you're going to decide to start growing food, right? The first thing you need to do is make a decision to decide to start growing. And for money, that means to decide to take control of your money. Just that decision to say, you know what? I'm going to start. Because once you've decided to start, that's when the journey can begin. That's when we can start taking steps. And that, to me, if you're going to learn to grow a garden, the first place, the great step, is to join a community garden. This is where, I've built my Good Investing Classroom as a place to be able to teach people. And I'll talk a little bit more about what's in there as we go through this journey, but I want you to feel like you're not alone. That I think for a lot of us, when it comes to money, things are a little taboo, right? We don't often talk to our friends and our family about money. And I want to change that. I want to bring people together and create space where people can learn about money, think about money, talk about money. And so that's where I have created the Good Investing Classroom. Yamini has thrown a link in there. And for those on YouTube and listening on the podcast, we'll throw a link in the show notes. Ayeta says, hi, Tim. I love the analogy. Ayeta, I'm so happy you could join. And, I've been pouring a lot of heart into this analogy, and I hope you'll enjoy it. Once you've just joined the community garden, well, then you got to clear your plot. Right? You want to get rid of some of the stuff that isn't going to help things grow. And so what that means from a money standpoint is to understand your preconceptions about money and only keep the ones that are helpful. Like, let's get rid of all the junk. Because I think for a lot of us, we have these stories that we tell ourselves about money. I had Jessica Moorhouse on the show last month. She's incredible. She's written this book, Everything But Money, where, talking about all of the psychological stories that we tell ourselves. And, we did this little exercise where I got people to ask themselves, what's your first memory about money when you were a kid? Right? What are those stories that we tell ourselves? Because that can be really telling about your preconceptions about money. Those usually come from our parents. Right? And there's often a lot of crap in there that we don't really need anymore. It doesn't really serve our purposes. And so, just like we need to clear our garden plot, we also need to kind of clear our minds a little bit to understand what those stories we tell ourselves are, and maybe decide to get rid of some of them and keep the ones that are helpful. From there, once you've done that, you want to pick your tools, right? This is before we start growing anything, we need our tools. And so this is where we need to choose a place for our checking account, our savings account, and our online broker. You're asking me to make it a little bigger. Let me see if I can zoom in a little more. How's that? Does that work better, Anna? I'm going to go back to my presentation here, because when it comes to picking your tools, this is where we're going to start with an action item. Because one of the first things we want to do on our sustainable financial journey, if the goal here is to protect ourselves from climate risk, right, is understanding that the banks aren't great. Fortunately, we have a choice, right? And a lot of you have heard me, if you've been to my talks in the past, you've heard I've done a whole YouTube video about banks versus credit unions. So I've done a bigger presentation in the past. That link is in there if you want to save that and watch it later. But that really it's about understanding how complicit the banks are in funding climate change. This is data from a report called Banking on Climate Chaos. This is their 2024 fossil fuel finance report. And you can see that the big 5 Canadian banks have invested billions, hundreds of billions of dollars into fossil fuels. The Royal Bank is the 7th largest financier in the world. Between 2016 and 2023, they financed more than $256 billion into fossil fuels. Scotiabank, TD, BMO, and CIBC are also very high up on the list. The Canadian banks are some of the biggest financiers of fossil fuels in the world, and that this is a huge impact when it comes to your personal impact. That Project Drawdown, does anyone know Project Drawdown? This is an initiative from Paul Hawken and a bunch of other amazing people. I love Project Drawdown, and they've got this cool project called Saving for the Planet, the climate power of personal banking, where they show that for every $1,000 US that a person has in savings is roughly equivalent to the direct emissions generated by flying from New York to Seattle every year, right? Ray says Project Drawdown is amazing. I agree. But what this means is that the money that you keep in your checking and savings accounts is likely one of the biggest contributors to your personal carbon footprint. That according to them, moving $8,000, now this is USD, but moving $8,000 from a carbon intensive bank to a climate responsible bank can yield indirect emissions reductions twice the direct emissions reductions of adopting a vegetarian diet. And I don't want this to be an either or situation. Of course, this is yes and. I want you to fly less. I want you to adopt a vegetarian or vegan diet. I want you to switch to an electric vehicle, and I want you to put solar panels up on your roof. I want you to do all of these wonderful things we can. But if you're doing these other things and your money is still sitting in a bank account with one of those big 5 Canadian banks, it is probably one of the biggest contributors to your personal carbon footprint. And it's one of the easiest things to do, to switch. That when I think about how hard it is, right? Like, you know, and some of these trade-offs involved in terms of, you know, something like when I want to fly, sometimes I want to fly, I want to visit my family, someone's getting married, someone's doing something, it's hard for me to like not fly as much. You know, changing our diet can be tricky. Not everyone can switch to an electric vehicle, right? But it's very simple to switch from a bank to a credit union. Paul says, yes, I'm a member of Regenerating Toronto, a next generation of Project Drawdown, regentoronto.org. Amazing, Paul. That's so awesome. Love these organizations. Well, let's consider where your money is sitting. And let's switch that. Because remember, this is like 8K here, right? But the tricky part is if we go back to your sustainable investment journey, because not only do I want you, you know, do we talk about your checking account where, you know, it's probably reasonable to keep in the ballpark of about a month's expenses in your checking account, right? But when it comes to your emergency fund, you know, the next step on your sustainable financial journey is to fill your pantry. That I want you to have a nice store. I want you to get through the winter. Before we start thinking long-term, right? I want you to think about, you know, getting through the winter. I want you to keep your pantry full. I want you to have an emergency fund that is between 3 months to 6 months expenses. Now, you know, if you're someone where, let's say your household expenses are 8K a month, you know, 3 months, that's going to be 24K. You know, 6 months, that's going to be 48K, almost $50,000 should be sitting in cash in a savings account. That again, think about, do the math on that carbon footprint, right? That now if you've got a proper emergency fund with, you know, 5 figures plus in there, that's going to be a huge impact in terms of your personal carbon footprint. Ray says, very easy to switch to a credit union and they will do the work for you. Experience talking. If there's anyone else who's made the switch from a bank to a credit union, throw it in the chat. Let me know what credit union you're with. I want other people to know that this is a normal thing to do, that it's not worse in any way. Credit unions still have the apps, right? Van City made the switch to Meridian. Someone asked, how do credit unions compare to the big five? They're like the same. You still have the app, online only. I've been in my branch once in the last 8 years. It's because I had a US dollar check and I didn't want them to convert the money. I wanted the US dollars. So I cashed that US dollar check in person. That's the only time I've been to it. Right? So to me, it's really, this is a great thing. If you're struggling, if you don't know how to do this and where to start, I cover this. I've got a mini course in my classroom. It's very simple. I've got a list of credit unions, for you to consider. We can find ones that are B Corps, right? But this is a really easy step is, to fill your pantry. I want you to set up your emergency fund. Megan says, I have an account in both a credit union and a bank. What about traveling internationally with only an account in a local credit union? Megan, for traveling, I use something called Wise, W-I-S-E. Used to be TravelWise, now it's Wise. There's an app. I tap my phone. I used it. They have really good exchange rates. You don't need a bank anymore, okay? You don't fire your bank. You can get rid of that. For international stuff, I use something called Wise. The next step on your journey, if you're planting, is to plant your first seeds. This is where I want you to make your first sustainable investments, usually in a TFSA, right? I want to be clear that, learning about investing is way more about language than it is about math. A lot of people are like, oh, math. But now we get to plant our seeds. You've got your emergency fund, right? Your pantry is full. Now we get to start planting for the future. So this is where I'm going to do a little, sustainable investing 101 here, right? I want to go through just teaching people that traditional portfolio, right? It's going to look like a pie chart, about 60% stocks, 40% bonds. This is what we call a balanced portfolio. This is a very standard investment portfolio, right? But when it comes to the standard investment portfolio, you haven't asked questions about it, what evil lurks in the global stock market, it's not good. There's a lot of fossil fuels. This is research from an amazing organization called As You Sow. I love them for all kinds of research. And this is in the global stock market, fossil fuel exposure of 8.81%. This means that almost 9% of your money is going to be funding fossil fuels. And these are going to be companies in the energy sector, coal industry, oil and gas, coal-fired utilities, and a lot of fossil-fired utilities. So these are going to have natural gas or fossil gas, right, that are burning a lot of that for electricity. So again, if you're not thinking about this stuff, the default option, if you invest in a globally diversified portfolio, is very carbon intensive. And the bad news for us here in Canada is that in Canada, it's even worse. That when we look at the MSCI Canada ETF, this would be just the Canadian market, that fossil fuel exposure is almost 25%, 24.38%. Massive. So it really is, this is such a big deal. If you haven't considered what's inside your investment portfolio, right? There's a good chance that a big percentage of it is in fossil fuels. So my suggestion is we make a small change, that we do a sustainable portfolio. And when we do a sustainable portfolio, this is the approach that I use. This is the language that I use, that most of your portfolio, most of your pie is going to be doing less evil stocks and bonds. This is where we're still going to be diversified. We're still going to have broad exposure, but we're going to get rid of all the nasty stuff. Everyone has a different idea of what that means, right? We can talk about good and evil, and this is a very personal thing. How far do you want to go? What kind of things do you want to get rid of? Right? So really when it comes to this, that should be most of your money should be invested in these doing less evil approaches, which I'll describe in a moment. And that allows us to carve out part of your portfolio for doing more good, where we can invest in green stocks, things like renewable energy, clean technology, water infrastructure. We don't want to put all of our money in those things, but we can carve out part of it. And then impact bonds, impact investments, things like community bonds, Solar bonds, there's some really, really cool stuff. This is the piece that I get really passionate about, are like local crunchy granola impact investments. I did a whole YouTube video on and presentation lecture on how to start impact investing. We'll throw that in the chat and in the show notes. When it comes to these different approaches, right, that sustainable investing is the very broad term. That, under doing less evil, we can talk about ESG, environmental social governance. We can talk about divestment, saying no, not one penny into these companies. Or we can talk about shareholder engagement, saying, you know what, I'm cool owning some of those shares, some shares of that company, but I want to be pushing that company in the right direction. These are all doing less evil approaches. And then on the doing more good side, we can talk about thematic investing in green themes like renewable energy, clean tech, water. We can talk about impact investing, which is the piece that I just absolutely love, are these like crunchy granola where we're making investments to, nonprofits and co-ops. The doing less evil stuff is absolutely designed to earn the same exact returns that you would otherwise. The doing more good stuff is where we start to get some trade-offs or some deviations. With the green investments, some years we do a little better, some years we do a little worse. And the impact investing is where, oftentimes we are trading off, earning a lower return or taking on more risk in order to get that impact, those warm fuzzies. The analogy that I use here is that we're building a pie, that bonds are like the crust of the pie, right? Safe, stable. That stocks are like the filling of the pie. That's really why we eat pie. Right? Is we want the filling. The reason we invest is we invest in stocks, diversified. That's really why we eat pie. And it's fine. If you just want to do doing less evil, stocks and bonds, that's a fine pie, no problem. The green stuff, the thematic investing is going to be the whipped cream on top. You don't need to do it. You don't need ice cream on your pie. Right? But there's a lot of people come to me because they want to invest in green stuff. And I don't want you to put all your money. I spend a lot of time telling people, just put a small amount into the green stuff. It's the ice cream or the whipped cream on the pie. It's not the whole pie itself. And then the impact investments are really the cherry on top. You don't need to do that, but I love the impact investments. It's so much fun. I see some people saying, CSI's last community bond offering was 6.5%. So an impact investment that pays 6.5%, not bad, right? There are many reasons for eating pie. Now I want some pie. It says Amy Yamini says ice cream can be non-negotiable for some. That's it. And for some people, it's non-negotiable that they want some of those green investments, but not everybody has to do that. So really, when it comes to sustainable investing, it really is as easy as baking a pie. It's really not that hard. This is where, again, in my classroom, I've got courses. We're uploading my old courses to do this. So things like my DIY Sustainable Portfolio course that I did back in 2021. My foundations course that I ran last year, that's going to be up in the classroom. And we are going to be running a new cohort in April. So if you want to learn how to bake a pie, if you want to learn more about sustainable investing and how to actually do it, join that classroom. We've got some great content in there. And really the question I've got for you, the action item, is to start asking questions. Ask yourself, what's inside my portfolio? Does it align with my values? And what fees am I paying? Most of my clients, again, it's one of these things where people assume there's like a sacrifice or a trade-off, that it's like hard to do sustainable investing or that you're going to pay more for it. Most of my clients, we lower their fees dramatically. So by asking these questions and thinking about your fees, oftentimes it ends up being even cheaper. So it's really not that hard. Sustainable investing is not that challenging, but it is a language. There's some language to learn. There's some things to unpack. We've got to start asking some questions. We've got to know the language to ask those questions, right? To interpret the answers. And I'm here to help you do that. So going back to your journey, that once you've planted your first seeds, right? You've made your first sustainable investments into TFSA. You've kind of, made your first pie and actually put it to work. From there, what we're going to do is we water and weed the garden. We set up our automatic monthly contributions and easy rebalancing. Rebalancing the pie, over time, things will get out of whack. Sometimes stocks do better. Sometimes bonds do better. So it's really important to keep it balanced over time. So just like we need to water and weed our garden, we want to set up those automatic monthly contributions so that we're automatically planting more seeds. And we do want to keep our portfolio properly balanced, right? From there, we let the sun shine. We sit back. fingers crossed, the markets do well. We really don't have any control over that. So we just ride out the markets. We just sit back. We let nature do its thing. We let the market do its thing. And that's when our money starts to grow. That's when our garden really starts to grow. Now, this is the point where, you might decide to grow some native organic plants. Hopefully you decide to make your first impact investment, right? You can watch that YouTube video for a longer explanation for this. So you can join the classroom and start learning how to make your first impact investment, buying your first community bond, right? I don't want you to do it with the whole garden, but we kind of carve out, a little section of the garden, right? These things are a little trickier. And so, but, they can be a lot more rewarding. It's certainly the thing that I care the most about. From there, maybe we need to start getting new plots, right? It might make sense for you to use some of these other accounts that are available, your RSP, your FHSA. Maybe you've got a kid and you want to do an RESP. Again, this is learning about investing is more about using, understanding the language and these acronyms, right? It's not about math. It's about language. This is a skill. Ian says, don't use chemical fertilizers. Yeah, let's make sure Monsanto is out of our portfolio. I guess it's Bayer now. Bayer acquired Monsanto. So we want to make sure Bayer is not in our garden at all. Dave says, organic or regenerative investing. Exactly. That's the cherry on top. And especially for people just getting started, I don't want you to go too heavy on that. I just want you to carve out a small part of your garden. But at this point, this is where some people do need some help, okay? And this is where really, when it comes to starting to manage multiple plots, and if, your situation is starting to get a little more complex, this is where it might make sense to hire some help. The service that I offer is fee-for-service financial planning, where you can pay me by the hour, which I strongly suggest, rather than paying someone a percentage of your money to invest for you. You can pay someone by the hour. Now, I'm not cheap. I'm about $750 an hour is my hourly rate right now. I do have discounts. So, if that's not affordable, I've got some 50% discounts, 75% discounts, even do a couple pro bono meetings every month. So, don't feel like it's inaccessible. As well, if I'm not the right person to help, there are other financial planners that I can refer you to that are a little more affordable. If you don't need help specifically with your investments, but you're dealing with another financial problem, there might be someone that I can point you towards. But again, I really want to reiterate that if you want some help with this, the first step, the first help, the most accessible help is to pay someone by the hour to help you do this. And then because from there, ideally in a dream world, we get to the point where our plots are full. And this is where we start growing outdoors. Right? And from a financial journey perspective, this means that your tax shelters are maxed. You've maxed out your RSP, your TFSA. And so this is where you start investing in a taxable account, right? This does mean that you've now got a fair bit of money. If you've been able to max out all of your tax shelters, high five, congrats, that's a big deal. Your plots are all full. It means you're thriving. You've got lots of food growing, right? Congratulations, you now get to start paying taxes on your investment profits. That's a really good thing, right? But it does mean that things do get a little bit more complicated, right? Maybe you're at the point now where you can carve out a larger area for permaculture, right? That you can dedicate a larger part of your portfolio to impact investments, those regenerative, investments, that crunchy granola stuff now all of a sudden can be more than just the cherry on top, that your, financial fulfillment is now more secure. So we can carve out a larger area, a larger slice for those impact investments. And this is where now, a lot of people at this point have sort of, seen they've done it themselves for quite a while, right? With minimal help, sort of low fees, and they decide, Tim, I just don't want to do this anymore. I want to hire a full-time gardener. That if you're feeling any stress or unease when it comes to managing your money, this is when it really makes sense to hire a full-service portfolio manager. If you've got an advisor, and this isn't something you want to do yourself at all, but you've got an advisor and you just want to find a sustainable advisor to handle everything for you. You're just like, Tim, I don't really want to, to learn how to do this myself at all. I really want to hire someone. We've got a webinar coming up in a couple of weeks, which is how to switch advisors. I'm doing this with my good friend Daryl Brown. A lot of you know Daryl if you've been following my work. So we've got that webinar in 2 weeks. I'm really excited for that. If you are in a situation where you've got more than 100K, right, then that's where this webinar is very much for you, where especially if you decide, I don't want to do it myself, I can't be bothered learning this, I just want someone to do it for me, but I want to switch advisors. We've got the link in the chat, we've got it, we'll make sure that's in the show notes, and really encourage you to come to that webinar where we just go through, step by step how to switch advisors. Things to consider. We've got some common mistakes that people make when they switch. We've also got some hot tips. So how to save even more money, while you're doing it. So, it's very reasonable for people with less than 100K, hiring a full service advisor, like it really isn't worth it. I do think it's worth it for people who are getting started to learn either how to do it yourself or to use what we call a robo advisor, where these things are a little bit more automated. But as soon as you've got more than 100K, that's when, if you do want to pay someone to do it for you, it's going to cost a little bit more, but there is absolutely value in that, and we can help you to make sure. Suzanne asked, how much is reasonable for a financial advisor to charge who manages a portfolio of more than 500K? It's going to depend, Suzanne, but the way we do it is a percentage of assets. If it's anything north of 1.5%, on 500K, then that's starting to get pretty high, that we can probably get you a better deal. If you want to know more about that, that's the kind of question we're going to be diving into with Daryl in 2 weeks. So would really invite you to come to that webinar. And then because from there, really at that point, that's it. This is where I want you to eat well from the proceeds of your force. I want you to enjoy life. I want you to feel confident in your financial freedom. I want you to have this idea of financial fulfillment, that really is the goal here. And so what I've done is I've outlined this idea of your sustainable financial journey, that from, feeling like a kid and having so many questions and feelings about money, taking the step by step, learning to grow a garden to the point where you have this nice, lush farm or forest where you feel secure, knowing that you've got more than enough so that you can be generous in helping your friends, your family, your society, and it's fantastic. But let me wrap up the presentation here with some final thoughts. That really, I want to be clear here that the status quo, if you do nothing, the status quo is very carbon intensive. That by default, most of us have our money in the bank and have our money invested in a way that is very carbon intensive. Switching is simple. It's really quite easy. Whether you're joining credit union, whether you're switching your investments, it's something you only have to do once, right? You only have to do it once. And there aren't major trade-offs. It's not like some of these other actions where, there really is a financial trade-off or, it can be really challenging. You can earn just as good financial returns while investing sustainably. And whereas, the best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago, the second best time to plant a tree is today. That I meet so many people that are like, Tim, I really wish I had made this switch, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I really wish I'd learned about sustainable investing, and started doing it back then. Don't worry, take a deep breath. You're good to go. The second best time to plant a tree is today. And I really want to encourage you to start taking some of these steps. That's kind of my presentation for climate proofing your personal finances. That's my sort of crash course. Lots of threads to pull on for more information, right? I'm here for you in this journey. But for now, I do want to switch gears and invite on Adam from My Climate Plan, who has a very exciting deal and offer. Adam, are you there?
I am here, Tim.
Adam, how are you?
Hi.
Everyone say hi to Adam in the chat.
I am ready after that chat.
You've got your tools. You've got your glove. I love it.
Yeah,
fantastic.
We're at a small we have a small family farm here of 5 acres or so, and I was just thinking, I've got the tools right here while you're talking. I've really got to take them up for my financial gardens next.
Fantastic. I'm happy to help you shift from, playing in the dirt to playing with your cash. But Adam, really happy for you to join me, and really happy to have a little partnership going between Good Investing and My Climate Plan. Can you tell the fine folks about what is My Climate Plan?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited to be announcing this as well, Tim. Well, first of all, just thank you again for that really incredible deep dive. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see so many names that I recognize and so many people that I'm meeting for the first time. So as Tim said, my name is Adam. I'm one of 5 co-founders at My Climate Plan, and I'll tell you a little bit about us. At My Climate Plan, we help people take practical, everyday steps to make our lives and communities climate safe. And that includes how we manage our money. Because as Tim laid out, where we invest and how we spend matters, not just for the planet, but of course for our financial health and future too. Um, I started My Climate Plan because I know how overwhelming climate change can feel. So many of us care so much, but figuring out how to make a real impact, that can be really tough. So, like many people, I found myself asking, what can I do right now to both provide well for my family, defend what I love from the impacts of climate change, and help leave a healthy world for my kids? And I just had my first grandchild born. How do I leave a good, healthy world for the people that I'm responsible for and that I care for so much? And that's why we created My Climate Plan, to bridge that gap, to make it easier for people to make climate smart choices, whether that's advocating for better government actions, whether that's preparing our homes for climate impacts, or like today, making smart financial decisions that align with our values, as you just laid out so well, Tim. So we do that at My Climate Plan in a few ways. The first is by helping people access discounts on things that help us take climate action. So for example, and thanks, I can see you've got our website up there, Tim. My Climate Plan members get discounts on things like heat pumps, so up to $1,000 or more off heat pumps, things that we need to be prepared for the impacts of climate change, like floods and fires. So emergency kits, we should all have those in our homes, but often they're a little too expensive, or it's hard to kind of make the decision, okay, I need to get one of those now. So My Climate Plan members have access to discounts and easy ways to get those and make sure we're all prepared. The other thing that we do is provide a weekly newsletter with your go-to information of the most impactful things that you can do right now. So again, just helping bridge from the what do I do next to, okay, this is the most useful thing I can do right now. So we keep that information coming to members so that we're always informed about what we should be doing next. And then finally, we connect the My Climate Plan community with trusted experts like Tim and Amy. So that whether you're looking at your investments or your home or your community, you have experts and a broader community of members along with you for your climate action journey. So Tim, that in a
Woo!
nutshell is what we're all about.
I love it.
And
Like, I'm such a fan. I've been following your journey for quite a while now, from sort of pilot project to launch to, now I think you're kind of in the growth and scale phase, which is so exciting. So really, really excited to sort of formalize a partnership. Love the newsletter, love getting the tips, and love the idea of climate preparedness. I do think that it's really tricky. I mean, it's climate change is here and it's getting worse. And as much as, a lot of the solutions around fighting climate change, or we need to save the planet, like I'm kind of over that I'm at the point where we are living with climate change, that it's a lot about adaptation, preparedness. How do we do that? So, really, really excited looking at things like, a veterinarian approved pet first aid kit. Like, I never thought about this as part of like a go bag, but like I've got a dog, and like and my dog needs a go bag too. So, having 15% off, knowing that this is just going to be like a trusted pet first aid kit, home and vehicle emergency survival kits, super, super important. I love this, 25% off an emergency portable charger, plus radio, plus flashlight. Like, this is just one of these things where really important to have, whether it's, dealing with, fires out on the west, or like here in Toronto. I mean, we had a huge snowstorm over the weekend and it felt like the city shut down. If we lost power here, I wasn't prepared. Like, I didn't have my phone charged properly, and who knows how long we could have been without power. So, these are things that I think anyone who's climate conscious should be very much aware of, so just love it. And I love being part of this. So, the deal that we've got is that members, your members, My Climate Plan members get 15% off everything I'm doing. So whether that's my classroom, whether that's my coaching services, anything that I'm doing that I offer, My Climate Plan gets 15% off right away. The way it works is that it looks like it's $10 a month to join My Climate Plan. That gives you access to all the discounts, powerful advocacy, personalized support, and a supportive community, which is super important for those of us that are trying to navigate this. I like this idea of a movement builder, where if you do have a little more privilege, sometimes at these investment webinars, we get people with a little more money. If you can afford it, for $20 a month, you're essentially doing a scholarship for someone. So it's your membership, and then you're providing a membership for someone who wants to join but can't afford to, which I just think is awesome. And my understanding is that we've got a little promo code here for, what is it? Is it 2 months of free membership? Is that right?
It sure is. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got good investing is going to be the code. So if we do join us here, right? And if we down here, if we've got the, where's the promo code, add promotion code here. If we do good investing, right, and hit apply, then we've got, look at this, 100% off for the first 2 months, access the discounts for free, join the membership, check it out. I think this is a really cool thing. I'm super excited to join. Really happy to offer this to everyone that's on the webinar, and making sure that y'all are all hooked up. Really want to encourage you to check out My Climate Plan. Join risk-free for 2 months. Use the promo code, check it out, see if you like it. If this is something that you want to be a part of and support, really encourage you to be a member. Adam, thanks so much. Just really appreciate this partnership, and really excited to see how you continue to grow into the future.
Likewise, Tim. Thank you.
What a great episode. Big thanks to Amy from Project Neutral and Adam from My Climate Plan for coming on the show. Thanks to my producer, Yamini Cohen, for helping me sound so smart. And thank you for listening. It really does mean the world. If you want to take steps forward on your personal finance journey, join my classroom at goodinvesting.com/classroom. See you in a couple weeks.